Oh my God.
The sun was burning yellow and angry when Marcus walked into the horse auction. His boots were old. His hat was torn at the edge. His clothes smelled like dust and broken dreams. Nobody knew his name anymore. Nobody cared. 20 years ago, Marcus was somebody in this valley. He had a big ranch with red barns and strong fences. He had a beautiful wife named Sarah, who laughed like wind chimes. He had horses, good horses, that he raised with his own hands. But life took everything. His ranch failed slowly. His wife left faster. Now, he had nothing but an empty house and a heart full of sad stories. Marcus stood at the edge of the auction ground. The dirt was kicked up by hundreds of hooves. Men in big hats shouted and pointed. They wanted the best horses, the fast ones, the strong ones, the ones that could work. Marcus watched them bid with money he would never have. Then he saw it. A black colt stood in the middle of the dirt ring. It was not beautiful. It was not calm. It was wild, wild like a storm with four legs. The colt kicked and screamed and twisted its body in angry circles. Two men held ropes attached to its head, but the colt fought them like an enemy. "This one is trouble," the auctioneer shouted. His voice was loud and mean. "This colt is dangerous. Nobody can break it. Who wants to try?" The colt reared up on its back legs and kicked the air. Everyone stepped away. The colt was small, maybe just 3 years old, but its eyes were full of fire and fear. It had been beaten. Marcus could see it in the way the colt flinched when the men raised their hands. Something bad had happened to this young horse. "This one is cursed." A man near Marcus said, "My brother tried to train it. It threw him off, broke his arm. Now nobody wants it. Should we just sell it for meat?" Another man laughed. Marcus felt something move in his chest. He knew about being broken. He knew about being afraid. He knew what it felt like when the world decided you were worthless. The auctioneer started the bidding. "Let's start at $500. Nobody raised their hand. $200? The crowd stayed quiet. They watched the black colt kick and scream. To them, this young horse was just a problem. Just a waste of space. $50? Still nothing. The auctioneer was getting angry. The sun was hot. The crowd was tired. "Come on, people. This is a real horse. Strong bones. Young. It just needs $1, Marcus said. The whole auction ground went quiet. Everyone turned to look at him, the old broken cowboy. The man with holes in his boots. "Did you say $1? The auctioneer asked. $1, Marcus repeated. He pulled out a single bill from his pocket. It was the last money he had. He had come to the auction just to look. He had not planned to buy anything. But when he saw that colt, something inside him woke up. Something that had been sleeping for a long time. The auctioneer smiled. "Well, that's the funniest thing I have heard all day. $1 for the devil colt. Do I hear any other bids?" Nobody spoke. "Sold." The auctioneer banged his hammer on the wooden stand. "To the man with $1. The crowd laughed. Some of them pointed at Marcus and made jokes. But Marcus did not hear them. He was looking at the black colt, and the black colt was looking at him. The walk home, Marcus walked toward the colt slowly. He moved his hands open and empty, so the horse could see he had nothing to hurt with. The colt watched him with wild eyes. Its body was shaking. Sweat made its black coat shine like whetstone. "Easy, boy," Marcus said in a soft voice. His voice was rough from not talking to anyone for months. "Easy now. You are coming with me." Marcus reached for the rope that the men had attached to the colt's head. The colt jerked back immediately. It screamed a sound full of panic and anger, but Marcus did not pull hard. He just held the rope gently. "I am not going to hurt you," Marcus said. "I know you are scared. I know you think everyone is mean. But I am not like them." The colt was not listening. It pulled and twisted and tried to run away, but Marcus waited. He stood very still, holding the rope, not forcing anything. He just waited like he had all the time in the world, like he had nothing else to do. Like this colt was the most important thing that had ever happened to him. Slowly, slowly, the colt's panic became less wild. It still did not trust Marcus, but it stopped fighting so hard. It was tired from fighting. Fighting took so much energy. "Come on," Marcus said. "My home is not far. There is good water there. And hay, and a place where nobody will hurt you anymore." Marcus began walking. He did not look back. He just walked toward the edge of town where the desert started, where his broken ranch waited. The rope stretched between him and the colt. For a moment, the colt did not move. It stood in the dust, confused and afraid, watching this strange man walk away. Then, because even wild things need somewhere to go, the colt took a step, and then another, and then another. It followed Marcus toward the long, dusty road that led to the valley. Behind them, the auctioneer was already calling the next horse into the ring. Nobody was watching anymore. Nobody cared about the old broken man and the wild black colt walking into the empty desert. But the colt was walking, and Marcus was not walking alone anymore. The silent ranch. It took them 4 hours to reach Marcus's home. The sun was dropping low and orange when they arrived. The ranch was quiet and lonely. The fences were broken. The barn was gray with age. Nothing here was beautiful anymore. But it was quiet, and quiet was safe. Marcus led the colt to the barn. Inside, there was straw and an old water trough. The colt was nervous about everything, the shadows, the sounds, the smell of an old place. But it was tired, so very tired. Marcus filled the trough with water. "Drink," he said. "You are safe now." The colt did not drink. It just stood in the barn, shaking, waiting for something bad to happen. Marcus left the barn and closed the door slowly. He would wait. He had learned in his broken years that waiting was sometimes the only thing a person could do. That night, Marcus sat on his porch under stars that burned like cold fire. He thought about the colt. He thought about why nobody wanted it. He thought about what anger and fear do to a young heart. And for the first time in many years, Marcus felt like maybe his broken life had one more chapter to write. The question hung in the dark sky above him. What would happen when a broken man met a broken horse?
3 weeks passed like water flowing through broken fingers. The desert around Marcus's ranch was empty and quiet. No birds sang here anymore. The wind only whispered old secrets. The sun came up each morning and went down each night, but nothing really changed. This was a place where time moved slowly. This was a place where broken things stayed broken, unless something magic happened. The black colt still refused to eat from Marcus's hands. Every morning, Marcus would wake before the sun. He would make coffee on an old stove that did not work very well. He would drink it slowly, sitting on his porch, watching the barn. Then he would walk to the barn and pour hay into the colt's food box. He would put fresh water in the trough. The colt would wait until Marcus left before eating anything. This was their dance, a dance of fear and patience, a dance with no music, only silence. On the 4th day, Marcus tried something different. He did not go into the barn to feed the colt. Instead, he sat on the fence outside. He sat there for hours, just sitting, not doing anything, not reading, not talking, just existing in the same space as the colt. The colt watched him from inside the barn. Its ears turned toward him. Its eyes were still wild, still full of memory about bad things, but watched. And watching was the first step toward trust, the power of staying still. By the 2nd week, something small changed. Marcus had started sitting on the same fence every single day. Always the same time, always the same place, always bringing nothing. No rope, no stick, no food. Just himself. The colt began to expect him. "I know you were scared," Marcus would say in a soft voice. "I know someone hurt you before. I know you think everyone wants to break you. But I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to sit here every day until you understand. I am not like them. The colt did not understand words, but animals understand patterns. Animals understand when someone shows up again and again. Animals understand when someone does not hurt them, even when they have the chance. One morning, the colt walked to the fence where Marcus sat. It did not come close. It kept 10 feet of distance between them. But it came. It stood there, watching Marcus watch it. For 30 minutes, they just looked at each other. Neither one moved. Neither one spoke. But something passed between them in that silence, a small promise. A beginning. Marcus did not smile. He did not make any big movements. He just let the moment be. He knew that pushing would ruin everything. He knew that patience was the only language this colt could understand. Dust and dust and more dust. The summer heat grew hotter. The days became like open ovens. Marcus began taking the colt beyond the barn. Not riding. Not even pulling on the rope very hard. Just walking. Leading. Talking in a low, steady voice about nothing important. See the hawk up there? Marcus would say, pointing at the sky. That hawk has been flying over this valley for 20 years. I know it because I see it every day. Even hawks get lonely sometimes. Even hawks need something to hold on to. The colt walked beside him. Sometimes it walked close. Sometimes it stayed far away. But it walked. It followed his shadow across the empty land like a dark reflection. The other ranchers would ride past sometimes. They would laugh when they saw Marcus walking in the desert with a black colt. You still got that devil, they would call out. Why don't you just break it? Make it useful. Marcus never answered them. He only nodded and returned to his walking. He was not trying to break the colt. He was trying to understand it. Those are two very different things. One old rancher named Tom rode up one afternoon. Tom had known Marcus before, when Marcus had a good ranch and a good life. Tom looked sad when he saw Marcus now. That colt will never work out, Tom said. Some horses are just born mean. You cannot fix mean. You should sell it for meat. At least you would get something. Marcus stopped walking. He looked at Tom for a long time. Then he looked at the black colt, which stood 10 feet away, watching everything. Tom, Marcus said quietly, that colt is not mean. It is scared. Nobody ever taught it that the world could be safe. Somebody just kept hurting it until it learned to fight back. That is not mean. That is survival. Tom shook his head and rode away. He did not understand. Most people did not understand. But the colt understood. Animals know when someone is fighting for them. The colt watched Marcus defend it. The colt saw that this broken man believed in it when nobody else did. The first touch. The third week was special. Marcus could feel it in his bones. The colt had stopped being completely wild. Its eyes had changed. The fire was still there, but it was different now. It was not the fire of fear anymore. It was becoming the fire of curiosity, the fire of hope. One evening, as the sun was dying and painting the sky purple and gold, Marcus sat on the fence again. The colt came to stand beside him, closer this time, only 5 feet away, close enough that Marcus could hear it breathing. Marcus sat very, very still. He did not reach out. He did not move. He just let the colt come to its own decision. The colt took one step closer, then another. Its breathing was shaky. Its whole body was tense like a string pulled too tight. But it took the steps. Marcus raised his hand very slowly, slower than a cloud moving, slower than a shadow growing. He raised it until his fingers pointed toward the colt's neck. The colt jerked back, just one step, but did not run away. It stood there deciding. Inside the colt's mind, there was a war between fear and hope, between running and staying. Hope won. The colt stepped forward again. It stretched its neck, and it let Marcus touch it, just for 1 second, just one quick touch on its dark, dusty neck. But that 1 second changed everything. Marcus felt the colt's skin warm under his old, broken hand. He felt the horse's heartbeat, fast and nervous, but real, alive, trusting him, even just a little. The colt pulled away after that touch. It was still scared. It still did not fully trust. But something had broken open between them, something that had been locked shut before. I know, Marcus whispered. I know you were scared, but you were brave. You were so brave. The question in the dust. That night, Marcus sat on his porch under the stars again. The cold had touched him. The wild, dangerous, broken Colt had let him touch it. In 3 weeks, they had moved from complete fear to this small, fragile trust. Marcus thought about how long this might take. How long until the Colt was truly his? How long until they could ride together? Maybe months, maybe years, maybe never. But for the first time since his wife left, Marcus did not feel hopeless. He felt like he had a purpose again. He felt like maybe both of them, the broken man and the broken horse, could heal each other. The question hung in the night air above him. What would happen when a broken man finally learned that patience was stronger than any rope? The days blurred together like watercolor paintings left in the rain. Summer heat pressed down on the valley like a heavy stone that never lifted. The temperature climbed so high that the ground cracked open in thin lines. The air shimmered above the dust. Even the wind forgot how to blow. But Marcus did not care about the heat. He was too busy watching something miraculous happen. A broken horse was learning to trust a broken man. By week 4, the Colt would eat from Marcus's hand. It took patience. It took standing very still. It took keeping his hand open and flat, showing the Colt there were no weapons hidden in his palm. But slowly, the Colt would walk over to him. It would stretch its long neck. Its lips would touch the grain in Marcus's hand. And for those few seconds, there was peace between them. "Good boy," Marcus would whisper. "Good, brave boy." The Colt's name came to him one morning. Marcus was sitting by the barn, and the sun was hitting the Colt's black coat, turning it almost blue in the light. The horse looked like midnight made solid, like all the darkness of the world had been poured into one living, breathing shape. "I'm going to call you Shadow," Marcus said, "because you follow me everywhere now, because you are always with me, even when I cannot see you." Shadow did not seem to mind the name. Names, after all, meant nothing to horses. But Marcus needed to call him something. Giving him a name made him real. It made him part of Marcus's life. It made the connection official, beyond the ranch. By the 5th week, Marcus started taking Shadow beyond the broken fence line. They would walk into the empty desert together. Just walk. No rope anymore. Shadow followed willingly now. The young horse had learned that where Marcus went, it was safe. Where Marcus went, there was no pain. They would walk for hours under the burning sun. Marcus would talk the whole time. He would tell Shadow stories about his old life, about the wife who left, about the ranch that failed, about the dreams that died like flowers in drought. "You know, Shadow," Marcus would say, "I thought I was finished. I thought life was over. I thought I was just going to sit on that porch until the sun burned me to dust. But then you came. You were broken like me. You were scared like me. And somehow, you made me remember that broken things can still live. Broken things can still move forward." Shadow would walk beside him, ears pointed forward, listening like the words mattered. They would find shade under the few trees that still lived in the valley. They would rest there during the hottest part of the day. Marcus would lean against Shadow's neck, and Shadow would stand still, holding his weight. Two broken creatures learning to hold each other up. The other ranchers saw them sometimes. They saw Marcus and Shadow walking through the desert like dancers who had finally learned their steps. They would point and whisper, but Marcus did not care anymore what anyone thought. He was too busy being alive again. The fire transforms. Something important was happening to Shadow. The wildness did not disappear from the young horse. Wild horses do not become tame. They become focused. They become directed. And that is what happened to Shadow. His craziness, his anger, his fear, all of it transformed into something powerful. It became strength. It became will. It became the kind of fire that makes a horse beautiful instead of dangerous. Marcus saw it in the way Shadow's ears moved, where before they would spin in all directions, jumping at every sound. Now they listened carefully. They pointed toward things that mattered. They ignored things that did not. He saw it in the way Shadow moved, where before the young horse would jump and twist at everything. Now each movement had purpose. When Shadow walked, he walked like he was moving toward something important. When Shadow ran, because Marcus had finally let him run free in the desert, he ran like he was chasing a dream instead of running from a nightmare. One afternoon, Marcus watched Shadow run across the empty land. The horse's black body flew across the dust like a piece of night that had come loose from the sky. His hooves barely seemed to touch the ground. His mane flew wild and free. For the first time, Shadow was not running from anything. He was running toward something. He was running toward the joy of being alive. He was running toward freedom that did not mean escape. It meant belonging. When Shadow came back to Marcus, his breathing was heavy and his eyes were bright. But his eyes were not wild anymore. They were clear. They were alive. They were asking a question without words. What is next? What happens now? The moment everything changes. It came on a quiet Tuesday evening. The sun was dropping low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. Marcus was sitting on a rock near the barn, just watching Shadow graze. The colt was eating desert grass that barely existed, pulling up little tufts of green from the cracked earth. Shadow looked different now. He was taller than he had been. His coat was shinier, healthier. His body was stronger because he was eating well and running free. But more than that, his whole spirit had changed. He looked like he belonged to something now. He looked like he had a reason for living. Marcus stood up slowly. He walked toward Shadow. The young horse saw him coming and did not move away. He never moved away anymore. Marcus reached out and touched Shadow's neck. Then, very slowly, he grabbed a handful of the colt's mane. Shadow felt the weight of Marcus's hand, but did not panic. The trust between them was strong now. It had been built piece by piece, touch by touch, word by word, over 5 weeks of patience. Marcus took a breath. He had not ridden a horse in years. Not since his wife left. Not since his ranch failed. But his body still remembered. His hands still knew how. He pulled himself up on his Shadow's back. For 1 second, everything stopped. The whole world held its breath. Shadow stood completely still. His muscles tensed. His breathing became shallow. Every nerve in his young body was screaming at him to run, to buck, to throw this man off. This was what horses do when they're scared. They throw you off. But Shadow did not move. Marcus felt the young horse shaking beneath him. He felt the fear in Shadow's body. But he also felt something else. He felt choice. Shadow was choosing to carry him. Shadow was choosing to trust him with his own back. "Easy, boy," Marcus whispered. "I know you were scared, but you were so brave. You are the bravest horse I have ever known." Marcus felt Shadow's fear begin to calm. The shaking began to slow. The young horse was still nervous, still unsure, but the panic was fading. Slowly, Marcus squeezed his legs gently. It was the softest signal a rider could give. Shadow took 1 step forward, then another, then another. The first ride. They rode through the valley as the sun burned orange and fell toward the mountains. They did not go fast. They did not go far. They just moved together, man and horse, 2 broken things that had somehow learned to be whole when they were together. Marcus felt tears running down his face. Happy tears. Tears of relief. Tears of hope. He was riding again. He was alive again. And beside him, Shadow was flying. The young horse moved like he understood what this meant. He moved like he knew this was the moment everything changed. This was the moment from broken to beautiful, from alone to together. They rode through the purple shadows of the valley. They rode under stars that were just beginning to appear in the darkening sky. And in that moment, Marcus knew something true with his whole heart. This horse had saved him. And somehow, he had saved the horse too. The question that had hung in the air above them for 5 weeks finally had an answer. When a broken man meets a broken horse, and both choose to trust, magic happens. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. Marcus was sitting on his porch, drinking cold water from a tin cup. Shadow was sleeping in the barn nearby. The days had been good, better than good. 3 months had passed since Marcus bought the wild colt for $1. 3 months of watching a broken horse become strong. 3 months of becoming alive again himself. The mailman rarely came to Marcus's ranch anymore. Nobody usually wrote to him. Nobody remembered he existed. So when the old truck pulled up to his gate and the mailman called out, "Got a letter for you, Marcus," it felt strange, like a ghost visiting from a past. Marcus's hand shook when he opened the envelope. The handwriting was his sister's, Emma. They had not talked in 2 years. Not since his life fell apart. Not since he had nothing left to offer the world. The letter said only a few things. Marcus, I am very sick. The doctors say I do not have much time. Please come. I want to see you before the end. I want you to know that I never stopped thinking about you. I never stopped believing you were still my brother. Please come. Emma. Marcus read the letter 3 times. Each time, his heart broke a little more. Emma, his beautiful sister, the one who used to laugh at his jokes when he was sad, the one who believed in him when nobody else did. She was in Riverside, the next town over. 3 rides away through difficult country. 3 rides away from dying without seeing him one last time. He had to leave. He had to go to her. But his truck was broken. The horse he used to own was long gone. He only had Shadow. Marcus looked toward the barn where the young black horse was resting. The decision. Marcus walked slowly to the barn. His legs felt heavy. His mind was spinning with questions he did not want to answer. Shadow was awake. The horse lifted his head when Marcus entered. They had been together for 3 months. Shadow could read Marcus's moods the way other people read books. The young horse saw something was wrong immediately. Shadow, Marcus said, sitting down in the hay beside the colt. I need you to do something for me. Something hard. Something I'm not sure you can do. Shadow walked over and rested his head on Marcus's lap. The young horse was still learning, still growing, still not fully mature. But he was strong now. He was fast now. He was brave now. Marcus told Shadow about Emma. He talked about how sick she was. He talked about how far away she was. He talked about how the roads were rough and the journey was dangerous. He talked about how he needed Shadow to run, really run, like he had never run before. I know I'm asking too much, Marcus whispered. You're still young. You were born wild and broken. But I need you to be brave one more time. I need you to carry me to my sister. Will you do that for me, Shadow? Will you save her life by saving my life? Shadow did not speak, of course, but he stood very still, and his eyes seemed to understand something deep and important. Marcus prepared through the afternoon. He packed water. He packed food. He packed money he did not have. He prepared Shadow with a saddle that had not been used in years, a saddle from a time when Marcus was still somebody important. As the sun fell toward the mountains, Marcus led Shadow to the barn door. The young horse was nervous. He had never traveled far. He had never been pushed hard. But when Marcus mounted, Shadow did not hesitate. They rode out of the ranch just as darkness was falling. Behind them, the broken house disappeared into shadow. Ahead of them lay rough country, mountains and forest and dangerous trails. Marcus rode through the night. Shadow ran like he had never run before. The young horse seemed to understand that this was not practice anymore. This was not a gentle walk through the desert. This was life and death. This was a horse being asked to be more than he had ever been. The first night was cold. The stars were bright above them, but they gave no warmth. Marcus could feel Shadow getting tired, but the young horse did not slow down. He seemed to know that stopping meant failure. Stopping meant Emma would die without seeing her brother. By morning, they had covered 30 miles. The second day was worse than the first. The sun came up angry and mean. The temperature climbed higher than it should. Marcus could feel his own strength, leaving him like water evaporating from stone. But Shadow somehow found more strength. It was like the young horse was pulling energy from somewhere deep inside himself. They rode through a forest where the trees blocked the sun. Marcus was getting sick. His head was spinning. His legs were weak. But Shadow kept moving. The young horse would not stop. The young horse would not rest. I know, boy, Marcus would say. I know it is hard, but we are almost there. My sister is waiting. Please do not give up on me. Shadow's breathing was heavy now. His coat was dark with sweat. His legs were shaking. But he ran. He ran like his own life depended on it. He ran like saving Marcus was the only reason he had ever been born. They reached a river that was too deep to cross. Marcus had to find another way, a longer way, that added 5 more miles to the journey. Shadow did not complain. He just turned and ran in the new direction. By evening of the second day, Marcus could barely stay in the saddle. His vision was blurry. His hands were shaking. His body was burning with fever. The journey was too hard. He was too old. He was too broken. He was going to fail. He was going to die on this horse, and Emma would die without seeing him. But Shadow would not let him fail. The young black horse, the wild colt that nobody wanted, the dangerous horse that was supposed to be cursed, found something inside himself that was bigger than exhaustion, something that was stronger than pain. Shadow ran. The young horse ran through the darkness. His hooves beat against the earth like a drum of pure will. His breathing sounded like the wind itself. His eyes saw the path forward when Marcus could not see anything but shadows. At midnight, they arrived at the edge of Riverside. The small town was sleeping, but lights were still on in the hospital. Emma was still there. She was still alive. Marcus tried to climb down from Shadow's back, but he could not do it. His body would not obey his mind. He fell from the saddle like a broken thing, landing hard on the ground. For a moment, he could not move. He could not even breathe. The journey had taken everything from him. His strength was gone. His body was finished. But Shadow stood over him. The young horse lowered his head and breathed warm air onto Marcus's face. It was like the horse was giving him life. It was like the horse was sharing his own strength. "Thank you," Marcus whispered. "Thank you, Shadow. You saved me. You saved both of us." The arrival. Doctors came running from the hospital. They found an old, broken man lying in the dirt and a young black horse standing over him, refusing to move. The horse looked like he had been ridden to death. His breathing was ragged. His legs could barely hold his weight. But his eyes were still focused on Marcus, still protecting him, still loving him. "Is this man okay?" a doctor asked. "Take him inside," another doctor said. Now, they carried Marcus into the hospital. Shadow wanted to follow, but a gentle nurse held his bridle. "Your horse needs rest," she said softly, "and water, and food. He has done something amazing. Let's take care of him now." Inside the hospital, in a small white room, Emma was waiting. When she saw Marcus, dirty, exhausted, barely alive, she began to cry. "You came," she whispered. "You actually came." Marcus took her hand with his shaking fingers. "Of course I came," he said, "and I brought someone with me. Someone who believed in me, even when I did not believe in myself." Marcus woke in a hospital chair beside Emma's bed. His back was stiff. His legs ached. His whole body felt like it had been put through a fire and forgotten. But Emma was breathing. Emma was alive. Emma was sleeping peacefully with a small smile on her face. The doctor said the shock of seeing him had somehow made her stronger, somehow made her want to live a little longer. Marcus stood up slowly and walked to the window. He could see the hospital stable from here. His heart was asking a question he was afraid to answer. He went downstairs without waking anyone. The stable. The hospital stable was small and clean. A kind nurse named Mrs. Chun was there, sitting beside Shadow's stall. When she saw Marcus, she stood up slowly. There was something sad in her eyes. "Your horse is remarkable," Mrs. Chun said quietly. "I have never seen an animal give so much of himself." Marcus walked to Shadow's stall. The young black horse was lying down in the straw. He was not eating. He was not drinking. His breathing was shallow and weak. His beautiful black coat, which had been shiny and strong just yesterday, now looked dull and tired. Marcus knelt down beside Shadow. He put his old, rough hand on the young horse's neck. "Shadow," he whispered. "Shadow, look at me." Shadow opened his eyes slowly. The fire was still there, that beautiful, bright fire that Marcus had learned to love. But it was dimmer now. It was fading like a candle that was running out of wax. "You ran too hard," Marcus said. His voice was breaking. "You gave too much. You saved my life, but you hurt yourself." Shadow's eyes found Marcus's eyes. And in that moment, there was no space between them. There was no distance. There was only truth, pure, honest truth. The young horse loved this man, and this man loved the young horse. And that love was the most important thing either of them had ever known. Marcus stayed in the hospital stable. He did not leave Shadow. He did not sleep in a bed. He slept in the straw beside the young horse, watching his breathing, feeling his heartbeat, willing him to stay alive. Emma called for him. The doctors asked him to come inside. Mrs. Chun brought him food. He did not eat. But Marcus would not leave Shadow's side. "You have to rest," Mrs. Chun said on the second day. "You cannot save him by dying yourself." "I know," Marcus said, but I'm not going to leave him alone. He did not leave me alone. Now I will not leave him. Shadow's breathing became slower. Longer pauses between each breath. Marcus would count the seconds, waiting for the next breath to come. Waiting. Always waiting. His whole life had been waiting. Waiting for his wife to come back. Waiting for his ranch to succeed. Waiting for his life to mean something. But this waiting was different. This waiting was filled with love. On the third night, Shadow's breathing stopped being regular. It became stuttering, like a machine that was breaking down. Marcus laid his head on Shadow's neck. He could feel the young horse's heart beating underneath his ear. Slower than it should be, weaker than it had been. "Thank you," Marcus whispered. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for running when you had nothing left to give. Thank you for teaching me what love really means." Shadow's ear moved. The young horse had heard him. Even now, even at the edge of darkness, Shadow was listening. Marcus woke at dawn. His hand was still on Shadow's neck. For a moment, he could not feel the heartbeat anymore. His own heart stopped. But then, so soft he almost missed it, the heartbeat returned. Weak, very weak. But there, Shadow's eyes opened. They looked directly at Marcus. The young horse was still alive. But something had changed. Shadow had used every bit of strength he had. There was nothing left. The colt who had run wild through the desert. The horse who had carried Marcus across impossible distance. The animal who had given everything. He had given it all away. Marcus understood what was happening. He understood that Shadow was saying goodbye. "I know," Marcus said, and tears were running down his face. "I know, boy. It is okay. You can rest now. You did enough. You did more than enough. You saved me. You saved my sister. You saved my life. That is everything a horse could ever do." Shadow closed his eyes. His breathing became even slower. Marcus stayed with him as the sun came up. He stayed with him as the morning light filled the stable. He stayed with him as the heartbeat under his hand became fainter and fainter. And then, as the sun was fully up and the world was beginning its day, Shadow took one final breath. The heartbeat stopped. The young horse, the wild colt that nobody wanted, the dangerous horse that was supposed to be cursed, the broken animal that had learned to love, was gone. Marcus held Shadow for a long time after. He did not cry loud. He did not scream. He just held the young horse's neck and let his tears fall silently into Shadow's black coat. This horse had been his redemption. This horse had been his reason to live. This horse had shown him that broken things could still be beautiful. Emma found him there 2 hours later. She was supposed to be in bed. She was supposed to be resting. But she came to the stable, and when she saw her brother holding the dead horse, she understood everything without words. Emma sat down in the straw beside Marcus. She did not say anything. She just put her hand on his back and let him grieve. "What was his name?" Emma asked finally. "Shadow," Marcus said, "because he followed me everywhere. Because he was always with me, even when I could not see him." "He was beautiful," Emma said. "He was," Marcus agreed. "He was the most beautiful thing I have ever known." The legend begins. News spread through Riverside quickly. The story of the old cowboy and the wild horse who saved his life by running to exhaustion became a legend. People talked about it in saloons. They told it to their children. They whispered it on street corners. "Did you hear?" they would say. "That broken down Marcus, the one whose ranch failed, he bought a wild horse for nothing. And that horse loved him so much, it ran itself to death, saving his life." Some people did not believe it. Some people said it was just a story. But the ones who had seen Marcus in that stable, holding his dead horse, knew it was true. Marcus stayed in Riverside. Emma recovered from her sickness, slower than expected, but she recovered. The doctors said it was the will to live that saved her. The will to spend more time with her brother. With the money from selling his old ranch land, Marcus opened a small school where he taught young people about horses. Not how to break them, not how to force them to obey, but how to understand them. How to see the fear underneath the wildness. How to heal broken things with patience instead of pain. He told the story of Shadow to every student. This horse was wild, Marcus would say, but wild does not mean bad. Wild means strong. Wild means passionate. The world tried to destroy him, but one person believed in him when nobody else did. One person showed him patience. One person loved him even though he was broken. What happened to the horse? The students would ask. He saved my life, Marcus would say. And then he died. But he is still saving my life every single day. Because he taught me something that nothing else could teach me. He taught me that true love means giving everything. He taught me that bonds between souls outlive death. He taught me that a broken life can become beautiful if someone believes in it enough. The final lesson. Years later, when Marcus was old and ready to leave the world himself, people still told the story. The story of the broken cowboy who bought a wild colt for $1. The story of how that colt became his reason to live. The story of how that horse ran until his heart broke, just to save the man who had saved him. The story taught a simple truth that the world often forgets. Loyalty never dies. Silence can be the most honest language. True bonds outlive death itself. When you believe in something broken, when you show it patience instead of pain, when you love it even though it seems impossible, that is when miracles happen. That is when legends are born. Shadow is gone, but his love for Marcus lived forever. And Marcus's love for Shadow lived forever too. And in that eternal love, the young horse became a legend. Not a legend of a perfect horse, but a legend of what love can do when it is real enough, deep enough, true enough. The man with empty pockets had bought something priceless. And in return, the wild colt had given him everything. The end. Fire.